Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything going on in the world of sports. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go.
Instead of looking deep inside, every word I have to say, keep it simple.
Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. Wait for it. His name is Padawan J.
Let me talk to you.
Yeah, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about in the land of sports.
Yeah, we do.
And I know Mother Nature has kind of affected the recording schedules here at the ODPH.
Is it a Tuesday in 2024 if there's not some sort of snowstorm blowing through the Northeast? I got to consult with the National Weather Service here in Binghamton because actually, surprisingly, they're very responsive on Twitter or X if you want to be all official.
It's always going to be Twitter.
But they're actually surprisingly responsive, and I got to reach out to them and be like, hey, how many of the 3 Tuesdays we've had in the year 2024 has it snowed? Because it feels like all 3.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I fully agree. So that's kind of thrown off the recording schedule. So this episode is going to be all sports. The entertainment edition this week is going to our patrons first.
Yeah.
So if you want to check out what we have to say in the land of movies, TV, comics, and more, that's where you go to for this week. If not, we're going to just talk about sports on this one. And Pat, where does everyone go no matter what?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. Swing on over to the website. Check out all the social media links. Everything's updated. It's all wonderful there. Also, check out the TeePublic store link, where if you want to get some ODPH swag, it's always a great time. You can check out the Patreon link, like we alluded to. One tier, $2 a month, and you get bonus content. Boom. That easy. Also, you can check out the blog section where there's a lot of reviews coming up, and we have you covered for New Comic Book Day there as well. The classified section where you can find friends of the show, such as 3FM Podcast, Dragon Master Games, Nerd Initiative. A lot of things happening there. Lots. So you definitely want to make sure you're clicking on over there and signing up on all those social accounts as well. The directory. Pat, how many providers are we on?
124,000.
Sounds about right to me. That is why he is the statistician to the stars. Also, check out the music section of the show where we have our good friends, Second Suitor, Tom Jolu, Shout at the Robots, Floodlands, Brian Wolff and the Howlers, and many, many more updating their links. New music is coming out. It's the new year, so if you want to update your Spotify playlist, your Apple Music, however you're listening to music these days, simple. Go on there, click on all those links, go get some new tunes for your players, and go enjoy what you hear on the ODPH. And if you want to talk about it on social media, it's very simple. Hashtag ODPH Pod. Kicking off the sports edition of the show, there's a lot of headlines to digest involving this divisional round of the National Football League. It's hard to believe, but there's only 2 weeks left and the season is done, Pat.
I know. Crazy.
It's insane, but we have to recap the week that was, so let's kick it off.
Yeah, so as we do with the NFL playoffs, we're going to do these in the order that the games took place in. No, I'm not trying to twist a knife and really torture the shit out of Ken by going last on him. They played last, we're going to cover them last.
Yep.
So starting off, we're going to talk about the Houston Texans who took on the Baltimore Ravens, where the Baltimore Ravens beat the Texans by the final score of 34-10. Lamar Jackson, 16 of 22 for 152 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. C.J. Stroud, 19 of 33 for 175 yards passing, no touchdowns or interceptions. Devin Singletary led the way for Houston in rushing with 9 carries, 22 yards, no touchdowns. Lamar Jackson led the way for Baltimore with 11 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then for receiving, it was Zay Flowers leading the way for Baltimore, 4 catches, 41 yards, no touchdowns. And Nico Collins led the way for Houston with 5 catches, 68 yards, and no touchdowns.
Well, this one can very easily be summed up as the Cinderella story of Houston finally hit midnight. C.J. Stroud has been playing above and beyond the call. He has exceeded projections for him this season. Houston was not supposed to be here.
Nope.
So the fact that they made it this far is a testament to what they're doing with this organization, and we have to always admit we were wrong about them this season.
Yes, we do.
And they have proved us wrong. But this was a time that we were going to find out, were they really contenders or pretenders per se? And unfortunately, when you're going up against the number 1 seed in the conference, chances are you're going to be pretending.
Yeah.
And this is one case where this was close until halftime, But John Harbaugh and the team really refocused in that second half. Mm-hmm. They looked very dominant. They were not messing around.
Absolutely not.
And they started picking C.J. Stroud apart and was, at least in my opinion, they were daring somebody to make a play.
Yeah.
And that is quite scary, especially when you have Lamar Jackson, who I think at this stage it's hard to say he's not the MVP candidate.
He's got to be the odds-on favorite at this point.
Yeah.
And if he's not, who the hell are you picking?
I mean, the only other player I would say, we'll get to him in when we recap this game, is Christian McCaffrey.
Yes.
That's been my 1-2 there. Tyreek Hill is in the conversation as well. But
if he'd have hit 2,000 yards, he'd be the shoo-in.
Oh, absolutely. But I think
injuries.
But I think in this case, too, you see what Lamar Jackson does for this team. Mm-hmm. Being the lead rusher, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards on the ground. He is getting multiple receivers involved in the game. And granted, Baltimore does not have a great wide receiver core.
No.
Albeit, though, they're going to get some help this weekend, as we're going to go discuss. They're doing everything to implement their will on their opponents, and they're making a statement win that they're the number 1 seed without question.
I mean, it's kind of insane to think about where Lamar Jackson is at this point, this season specifically, because let's turn the page back, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is. And he didn't get a contract extension, didn't negotiate a new contract with the Baltimore Ravens, played out the season, had a great season, and then came back in the offseason, when the reports were out there, how much he was asking for, how much he was looking for, and everyone thought he was nuts. Everyone's like, oh, are you really worth that much? Is it really going to be, the most bang for your buck? He ends up re-signing with the Baltimore Ravens. Has a decent year last year. But then you bounce back and you look at this year, which you still got to play it out, still got to see. But as it's looking right now, won the division. He won the AFC North, got the number 1 overall seed in the AFC conference, is potentially going to win the MVP this year, and is on the cusp of going to the Super Bowl. If that ain't the biggest middle finger F you to the haters, I don't know what is.
No, he wanted to make a statement, and he clearly did.
He understood the assignment.
Exactly. And to play with that big of a chip on your shoulder and motivate your team to rally around you, I mean, that's a true testament of a leader in that locker room.
Yeah.
And this is something that Baltimore, we often forget with some of the names in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, when he's healthy, Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson does not get enough credit for what he does with his team, in my opinion.
Right.
And I think this was a case where he understood he's on the national platform. Houston has a lot of momentum behind them.
It's a feel-good story.
They're a great story, but we don't remember stories. We remember winners.
Yes.
Lamar wants to win worse than anybody.
Yeah, he does.
And it clearly showed in his playing, especially when they took over in that fourth quarter.
Oh, my God.
I thought Roquan Smith did an amazing job for Baltimore on defense, really stepping up to the task at hand. And when you can have a defense of this as disruptive as they were, they're going to give anybody fits the longer they go in these playoffs.
Roquan Smith was an absolute monster. Looking at the stat sheet, and now this is just the stuff that shows up in the old box score. This ain't the intangibles and the stuff that don't show up. But in the box score, he had 7 total tackles, 5 of them by himself, and 2 of those tackles were for loss. Good Lord.
Yeah, he is played out of his mind. I don't think he's getting enough credit as well.
Yeah, well, when you consider who's on that defense, and you've got Jadeveon Clowney there, who is his own monster in and of his own right.
Yeah, he's having a resurgence.
Oh, he's having a resurgence. You can never count out Kyle Van Noy. Listen, I'll always give him his flowers for the time he gave us in New England. But, Roquan is not the guy that first comes to mind, at least before this game, when you think of monsters on that defense.
Right. So Baltimore is moving on, which rightfully so. They made this the second half. It's a day and night difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Houston was in this game, but the second half they just came out flat.
Yeah.
CJ needs more weapons on offense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He does not have this. I mean, Nico Collins played okay. Dalton Schultz did what he could.
Right.
But they're still missing some pieces, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They'll bounce back next season. I think you'll see a lot of free agents.
Oh, absolutely.
At least entertain Houston.
Absolutely.
But right now it's Baltimore heading into the AFC Championship. And they'll have a very tough task, but we'll get into that in just a little bit.
Yeah, so the other game that took place on Saturday was between the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers, and you had the San Francisco 49ers emerge victorious, winning by the final score of 24-21. Brock Purdy, 23 of 39 for 252 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Jordan Love, 21 of 34, 194 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Aaron Jones led the way for Green Bay in rushing with 18 carries, 108 yards rushing, and no touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey led the way for San Francisco with 17 carries, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns. George Kittle led the way for San Francisco in receiving with 4 catches, 81 yards, 1 touchdown. And Romeo Doubs led the way for Green Bay with 4 catches, 83 yards, and no touchdowns.
Easiest way to describe this game is the youth of Green Bay came back to haunt them.
Yeah, inexperience.
Inexperience was something that popped in the fourth quarter because where Green Bay was still in this game, it's only 7-6 at halftime. In the third quarter, they outscored San Francisco 15-7.
Uh-huh.
So they were looking very, very dominant going into that fourth quarter.
And maybe San Francisco's not as a lock to win it all as we might have thought.
Well, I think the problem they had is when teams were really focusing on Christian McCaffrey.
Uh-huh.
And obviously Deebo Samuel got injured.
Yeah, that hurts.
That really took something away from that offense because what he does paired with McCaffrey in that lineup, they do a lot of motion.
Yes.
You take one of them out of the equation, I don't want to say predictable, but it's a little more easy to figure out where the 49ers are going with their offense.
It's like when the Patriots lost Gronkowski in the playoffs in whatever fucking year it was, where Gronkowski was the number one offensive feature of that game plan. And then all of a sudden you had to audible and change everything. You know, obviously you're not going to throw the ball to Gronky and on the field. You know, same thing here.
Yeah, exactly. But the 49ers defense really stepped up, was making a lot of plays.
Yeah.
And that is really what's kept them in games because they're so balanced on both sides of the ball. When it came to this fourth quarter, this is where I thought Jordan Love, I don't want to say panicked.
Sure.
But much like you touched upon, the inexperience.
Well, it's the butterflies.
Yeah. Caught up with him, especially in that fourth quarter. And it did not help that Carlson missed a kick for Green Bay that would have tied things. And then Love really pressed himself in that fourth quarter because he was trying to make a lot of plays happen. And then through the game-winning interception to San Francisco late, which, I mean, had nothing on it.
Right.
And I understand he was trying to make something happen. I'm not faulting him for this. But it's one of those cases where this is a learning experience for Green Bay. I know that they fired their defensive coordinator as of this morning.
Yep.
They're going to make a lot of changes. The one question mark is, will they get enough help to get them to that next level in the NFC? I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be tough to say. I mean, the defense overplayed, I would say, exceeded expectations. You know, so you can obviously make some adjustments there. I'd say offensively they need a little bit of work because you've clearly got a great running back in Aaron Jones. Yeah, you know, especially with this game. Listen, 18 for 108, that's pretty goddamn good. Would have liked to see him hit pay dirt a couple times, but you know, is what it is. And then obviously you've got a great set of star with Romeo Doubs there. You know, Jaden Reed's also not too bad. You know, so maybe if you get a couple more options there at the receiving core. You know, maybe get a little bit more offensive line help because Lord knows you can never have enough of that. And the Packers will actually be looking pretty good.
Yeah, they're not out of the realm of thought of making a deep run.
No.
But they do need some upgrades on both sides of the ball. I mean, I think that's just being very honest about this.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So we'll have to see what happens here, but not a bad way for them to go out per se because they almost had this game.
They did.
But this is where the experience factor of San Francisco came into play.
Yep.
They didn't get rattled. Brock Purdy, I mean, for being in the playoffs for just, his second year?
Yes.
It still looked very poised, did not get rattled too much.
No.
Albeit, though, took a couple bad shots to his throwing arm.
Oof.
So I would be worried about that going into this week. But when you have Christian McCaffrey there to bail you out, that does help a lot.
The other concerning thing, as we alluded to him, is the Deebo Samuel injury. And currently, as we record, now this was reported today as we record, and I'm looking at the injury report for the San Francisco 49ers on ESPN.com, and it says, quote, Deebo Samuel, questionable. Samuel shoulder won't participate in Wednesday's walkthrough, Nick Wagner of ESPN.com reports. So odds are he's going to go Sunday, but as in what capacity and what percentage, if we're talking, he's at 50%, he's at 100%, remains to be seen. But I'm willing to bet if he's not doing walkthroughs and it's Wednesday and the game's on Sunday, he won't be in everything.
He won't be in everything. I think they're going to give him as much rest as possible.
That could be.
But I think if he can actually suit up and go out and at least be a decoy, he's going to play Sunday.
Oh, yeah. No, he's not missing this game. Like, he'll have to have a broken leg. And even then, he still might try to go out there.
Exactly. But a gritty win for the 49ers to hang in there and really weather a very tough storm and a Packers team that almost pulled this off.
Yeah.
Almost.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Surprisingly, I think they've been a great surprise this season. Albeit, though, I think the biggest surprise to some this season is the next game we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so this was the first of the two games on Sunday, and that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Detroit Lions. And you had the Detroit Lions emerge victorious, winning by the final score of 31-23. You had, just 1 second, did not open the right box score there. Give me 2 seconds.
We do this live, folks. That's how we keep it honest with you.
Yes, we do. For whatever reason, when I opened the page, it didn't open the right page. Jared Goff went 30 of 43 for 287 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Baker Mayfield, 26 of 41 for 349 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Rashad White led the way for Tampa Bay in rushing with 9 carries, 55 yards, no touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs led the way for Detroit in rushing with 9 carries, 74 yards, just 1 touchdown. For Detroit in receiving, it was Amon-Ra St. Brown with 8 catches, 77 yards, 1 touchdown. And for Tampa Bay, it was Mike Evans with 8 catches, 147 yards receiving, and 1 touchdown.
This was arguably the most entertaining game of the entire weekend.
Well,
It's arguable.
it's arguable, yeah.
Because this was very back and forth.
Yeah, it was.
And Tampa Bay, as much as a lot of fans don't want to hear this, is very similar to Detroit in certain aspects.
A little bit.
So it was almost a kind of spy versus spy type vibe.
Yeah.
They're very equal in certain areas. And this was a situation that Detroit rose to the occasion. I really think that I don't want to say got lucky, but they're very fortunate to have snuck this one out.
Yeah, no, that's accurate.
Because Baker Mayfield, even though the 2 interceptions, played very, very well. Jared Goff did okay as well. But I really think it was the tempo of the running game. Jahmyr Gibbs really was setting a lot of key moments where he was running. And I think for where Detroit needs to go now, obviously facing San Francisco, the biggest X factor for next weekend is going to be their secondary.
Yes.
Because they did not look great in this game.
I mean, you let Mike Evans burn you for 147 yards, which that's an average game for Mike White. But then you also couple with Cade Otton, who again,
Yeah.
65 yards. Chris Godwin had 40. Like, these guys were running all over you.
And I think that that's going to be a problem with a team that's as skilled and disciplined as the 49ers. Because the question mark I have right now is if Debo's in that lineup, on paper right now, is that secondary going to be able to handle him and Kittle? And then I'll throw in Brandon Ayuk just to give a third receiver.
I mean, even if it's just Debo and it's nobody else in receiving core. Like that Detroit secondary is going to get torched like it's paper doused in gasoline. Like, listen, the Detroit front 7 or however many it is on that front line, hey, you guys get a cookie. You guys did a great job. You sacked Baker Mayfield 4 times, and then you hit the quarterback a total of 8 times total. So, hey, kudos to you. Kudos to the front 7 or however many for Detroit. That secondary, though, that's going to be a real tough task. This could end up being another back and forth shootout between the two teams on Sunday.
Well, the one thing is for next week's game is the line opened big for San Francisco.
Oh, did it? I hadn't looked.
Yeah, it was close to 10.
Well, that's what it was for San Francisco last week. It was 10.5 by the time kickoff. Let's see. Right now it is, of course, not on that page. Let's open it up.
Well, that's the one issue that I think the Detroit needs to have that chip on their shoulder going out west.
Currently San Francisco by 7.
Yeah, okay, so that's come down a little bit. I think going out west, though, Detroit is not going to be at home. They're not going to have the emotion that they had playing in front of their hometown.
Yeah.
I think now is going to be a real test to see how this team in general responds to being in their first NFC Championship game since '91.
And it's funny you bring that up because world's a little different since it was in 1991. The number one movie since in the time when it was the last time the Lions were in the NFC Championship game, number one movie at the box office, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. The number one song on the radio was "Everything I Do It For You" by Bryan Adams. Barry Sanders led the league with 16 rushing touchdowns. The Hammer Dance hit popularity there.
Yeah.
You'll love this one. Price of gas, $1.14 a gallon.
I miss those days.
So do I. Here's the other thing, kind of some crazy little factoids, because 1991, it sounds like a long time ago. Here's just like a gauge of how long ago. iPods didn't even exist yet. Text messaging wasn't even a thing yet. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Sam Laporta, all four players on the Detroit Lions this year, weren't even alive yet.
Yeah.
Amazon, Google, and MySpace and Facebook weren't even around. PlayStation and Xbox weren't even around. BlackBerry was still 8 years away. Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic weren't even born yet. And then Dan Campbell, head coach of the Detroit Lions, he was still in high school.
Yeah.
Like, it's absurd how long ago this was.
Well, that's why Detroit is a very sentimental favorite for a lot of fans because
they're like the NFL version of the Cubs.
Well, to
a certain degree.
To a certain degree, because obviously few teams have gone winless like they have.
True.
Their franchise has not had this much excitement around it since you touched upon, since Barry Sanders played.
Yeah. There were some flashes with Stafford and Calvin Johnson, but it never really manufactured into anything.
No, I think you needed the head coach with the right mentality, and Dan Campbell should be head coach of the year. I don't think there's any question about that in my mind. For what he's done for the city, he's really embraced it, and it's really treated it like an us against them.
Yeah.
You know, like you always see those shirts like Detroit versus everybody.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying with that.
Yeah.
And as long as they carry that swagger into the 49ers stadium, they'll have a chance. But I truly think, though, this is going to be where the veteran experience of the 49ers comes into play. I think this is going to be a game, unfortunately, the Cinderella story, like much like we touched upon with Houston, runs out. And I think it's going to be a situation that unless Jared Goff can have a career game and that secondary can slow down the passing attack of the 49ers, I think this is going to be 49ers all day.
Probably. And just one little more factoid on the game from Sunday between the Bucs and the Lions. They did crazy ratings because according to NBC Sports PR, for all of a couple hours, it was the most watched NFL divisional playoff game since 1994. It averaged more than 40 million viewers. It peaked at 49.1 million viewers. And I read in one article that in the Detroit area, it was on in 77% of households.
Oh, I believe it.
Which is absurd.
Well, you have to think about that city has been waiting for a sports team to step up and step out.
Yes. I mean, they got the Red Wings, but somebody other than the Red Wings.
Well, like I say, when was the last time the Red Wings were in Stanley Cup contention?
Oh, early, mid-2000s?
Right. Same thing
against Pittsburgh?
Same thing with the Pistons. It's been a while since.
That was 2005?
Yeah.
6?
So you have to think about it. That city has been waiting. Granted, the
Tigers were there in the World Series at least once.
Right.
Yeah. 2005?
But the Lions, I mean, and let's face it, we've talked about this many times. Football is now the national pastime.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. And that's where you're seeing here with Detroit. So we'll have to see how that matchup plays out on Sunday. Like I say, I think it's 49ers all day.
Probably.
And then the game, I'm not ducking away from this one. Pat will even give the disclaimer for this because I have some feelings.
So the views, thoughts, and opinions are that of Ken M. Do not necessarily reflect that of the ODPH. Listener discretion is advised. We are, of course, talking the Buffalo Bills who took on the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Kansas City Chiefs emerged victorious, winning by the final score of 27-24. Patrick Mahomes, 17 of 23 for 215 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Josh Allen, 26 of 39 for 186 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Josh Allen was your leading rusher, going 12 carries, 72 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. For Kansas City, it was Isaiah Pacheco, going 15 carries, 97 yards, 1 touchdown. Travis Kelce led the way for Kansas City, going 5 catches, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. And for Buffalo, it was Dalton Kincaid getting 5 catches, 45 yards, no touchdowns. The reason I said with the last game that it was the number 1 most watched divisional game for all of like a couple hours, because the Bills and Chiefs came in and said, hold my beer. Because according to the folks over at CBS, that one did over, more than 50 million viewers, and averaging 50.393 million viewers, which was up 10% from last year's window, which was the Cowboys 49ers game. The previous record was for viewers was 48.5 million viewers in 2017 between the Cowboys and Packers.
Well, there's a lot to digest here. Buffalo had their best opportunity to beat their rivals, which I'm going to say something right now, too. This whole talk of Allen and Mahomes being the new Brady and Manning, I don't necessarily buy into per se.
Okay.
Because the one thing is these games have been very back and forth, but it can't be a rivalry until somebody gets a win over the other.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that has not happened with Josh Allen and the Bills because of reasons.
Yeah.
And if you take a look at the 2 other previous times in this game, there's one common denominator that has come into play.
McDermott in the second half.
Yep. No, you're right. It's McDermott. I think at this stage he is the Mark Jackson of the Bills dynasty right now.
Okay.
Like he's put it together, but he's not the guy to get them to the next level.
Okay.
I just think that what we've seen in this situation is the Bills did have a lot of injuries, but every team has injuries. Him being the one responsible for the defensive calls and being head coach came back to haunt him in the worst way possible here. Because when you have Travis Kelce wide open numerous times in this game and you don't adjust for him, that is a problem.
And especially when they were bringing up right at the kickoff how Buffalo was having linebacker issues and all the injuries and yada, 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 and how, that's going to really help and work in Travis Kelce's favor. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or, the greatest defensive coach of all time to figure out, hey, we're really bad on linebackers. Kansas City's going to exploit the shit out of that, and they're going to go to Travis Kelce a lot. We should probably adjust and plan for that.
Yeah. I would have been much happier. Well, let me rephrase it. I would have been able to accept it more.
Sure.
If we got beat by MVS.
Sure.
If we got beat by Rashee Rice, I would have been fine with it.
Nicole Hardman.
Yeah. I would have been okay with it because if you take out their best weapon and you still get beat, hey, they deserve to win. In this situation, the Bills gave them this because their defense, as banged up as they were, could not make a stop.
Well, in the second half.
In the second half, because what we touched upon, they needed to make adjustments in that second half. They clearly did not.
And Kansas City did.
Kansas City did. Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league for a reason. And the areas that Josh Allen was exceeding with was the screen passes out.
Yep.
They had the run game going with James Cook. And yet in the second half, for whatever reason, we switch up the offensive mentality.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because there's obviously no way for me to find out. But did it seem like to you they got away from the run game
Absolutely.
entirely in the second half?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll even say something that's going to fire up Bills fans.
Ooh.
This is something Ken Dorsey did. The former offensive coordinator.
Right.
That everybody was screaming to get out of town.
Yeah, okay.
So you can't have that same energy about this with the new offensive coordinator because if they're calling the plays and then you're winning the game by running the ball, and then you stop in the second half, and it's not like they switched up their schemes that they could not get the ball going here. Like Kansas City played it very well.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, what Joe Brady did is he went away from what was working.
He went to the Kyle Shanahan school of second half playing.
Yeah.
If you don't know, get what I'm saying, watch the Super Bowl between the Patriots and Falcons,
Yeah, he started passing all over the place,
which is what the Falcons did.
which would have worked if a Bills receiver could have caught the ball.
Let's get it specific. A Bills receiver not named Dalton Kincaid, 5 for 5.
Right. Well, him and Shakir did fine.
Yeah.
I have no. In fact, I'll even say this: Gabe Davis not in the lineup was not a factor.
Probably would not have been. No.
I'm going to say it right now.
No.
Khalil Shakir is the clear-cut number 2 on this team. There's no question in my mind about this.
9 for 7 with 44 yards and 1 touchdown.
He's fine. He stepped up. He did what he could in this game. The person, if you're going to blame anybody, because he is obviously the one that's been the most vocal, is Stephon Diggs.
Prima donna himself.
And if you're going to be talking about give me the ball, I'm always open, paraphrasing a little bit from Jamar Chase, if you're going to be sitting there complaining about your production with the team
For 2 years.
for 2 years now, ever since the first loss in Kansas City where there's the iconic shot of him still staying on the playing field watching the celebration happen. If you're going to still sit there and be complaining about your time, you need to step up in big games.
Yeah.
You had the go-ahead touchdown pass in your hands.
By like a mile.
And you dropped it.
Oy, like threaded the needle. Wasn't even a defender. Well, there was a defender there, but the defender didn't factor into the catch.
Not factor.
He fell down or whatever it was. But yeah, no, Allen hit the bomb. It was like, 65, 70 yards?
Yeah.
Hit him in stride, right in the numbers, and it just went right through his arms.
It
Not even his hands, right through his arms.
It was the big play that Bills fans were waiting for that game.
They hadn't really opened up like that the entire game.
No, they were playing very conservative.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
And granted, it might have been because, that's right, Diggs fumbled the first play of the game.
Yeah, that did happen.
And they were being very careless at times, and they're lucky that they were still this close going into the second half. But then again, we go back to the latter half of this game. They're going back and forth. The Bills have the lead. They can't sustain it.
And then you thought momentum changed when Mecole Hardman fumbled the ball through the end zone.
Yes. Which
and I'm sitting there going, oh, shit. Like, I'm watching with my fiance, Liz, and she's like, oh, my gosh. I go, this could be a game changer.
Well, it should have been, because you know what? Why McDermott went for a fake punt.
Holy fuck, yeah.
In that situation.
Yeah.
Like, I might have thought that should have been a good idea as a joke, but what momentum did you have?
Yeah, there was no reason for that.
No, you should have just not fake punt. You should have just went for it as is. You know what? Done a screen pass to to James Cook.
Yeah.
To have Josh run
Yeah.
as an option, because he could still get 5. He could get 5 yards in that situation.
Sure.
No question about that.
Sure.
Or throw a little screen or dump pass to Kincaid. Like, if you did stuff like that, you would have been fine.
Yeah.
But you're lucky you got the ball back. Momentum shifted. You have everything going in your favor, and you come out flat. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, in the final moments of the game, at that 2-minute warning, you're driving down the field. I have a big problem with Brady's calls here.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
And McDermott, if you're seeing the same thing I am, why are you allowing this to happen? Because here's the problem that you had. It was 2nd and 9. You tried running with Cook.
Yep.
Cook got stopped. Okay.
Yeah.
Happens. Next play, you have Diggs doing a screen, and he's wide open. Josh, and this is the only thing I'm going to fault him about.
Okay.
He tried playing hero.
I agree.
And granted, he got his foot stepped on when Dawkins got backed into him. Okay, listen,
Shit happens.
It is what it is, but I'm going to paint you the scenario. Okay. At this time, there's about 1:20 left on the clock.
Give or take.
Okay. He throws it to Shakir. Shakir, it just comes up short.
Yep.
If Shakir catches that,
how
much time is left on the clock?
Probably around a minute or so.
Okay, but minute 15, we'll say.
Give or take. Yeah.
Why are you giving that much time back to Mahomes?
Yeah.
Have we not learned from the squib kick you did not do?
Yeah.
Don't give him time to get the ball back.
Yeah.
And yet, you're going to play hero. I understand you want to get that crowd electric and going, but newsflash, your defense cannot sustain on the field.
No.
So why are you sitting there trying to go for the kill shot that much time left in the game?
You got to be, surgical with your plays and almost do like what the Patriots had to do whenever they would play Peyton Manning, where if you left Peyton Manning any amount of time, he was going to carve you up like a fucking surgeon in the operating room. Mm-hmm. And you were going to sit there and you were going to watch it and you were going to take it. Mahomes is not necessarily as surgical as Peyton was, but he can still has that ability to, if you leave him even fucking 30 seconds of time, he will still air it out downfield, dink and dunk down the field, get guys to catch and go out of bounds or whatever he has to do to put them in a position to win the game. So, that's why, okay, yeah, Tyler Bass missing the kick sucked. If you're one of the people going out of your way to send any sort of negativity or messages or whatever to him, fuck you.
Exactly.
Is it shitty he missed the kick? Yes. Did it ultimately mean the game? No, because let's play alternate timeline. Even if Bass makes that kick, there's still how much time left. And we've seen what happens when you leave Patrick Mahomes any amount of time left on that clock.
Yeah.
He's going to carve the shit out of you. Sorry, it is what it is.
Yeah, why are you even throwing, unless it's a screen pass?
Yeah.
That is my only fault I'll have with Josh about this game, because Josh played a great game.
Yeah, he did it. He did have a good game. That's just the only thing is I agree with you. There were times where he tried to play hero, or if we're talking like NBA, where, if you drive to the lane and you go for two and try to get fouled, that makes a lot more sense than trying to put up a three-pointer and tie the game.
Yeah, and that's a situation that the Bills looked very inexperienced in this moment.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Bills Mafia, listen, anybody wants to debate me about this, go right ahead.
Yeah.
This is what happened. So when Kansas City gets the ball back, you still have time to stop them, but you let Isaiah Pacheco look like the second coming of Priest Holmes.
Yeah.
And he just ran right down the field on you guys.
Average 6.5 yards a carry.
Sorry.
The one thing I will say is, to get back to your point of like the Brady Manning thing.
Yeah.
I do subscribe to that, but not in the way you think.
Okay.
I don't subscribe to it in that like Patrick Mahomes is Tom Brady and Josh Allen's Peyton Manning. Not that aspect of it. I do subscribe to it, and I tried explaining this to a friend of mine who's a Chiefs fan, but I just could not get him to understand it. I do subscribe it into the fact that, like, for the duration of these two players' careers, they are going to be compared in every statistical category available online. Completions, yards, touchdowns, interceptions, whatever. Wins, losses, championships, everything. That's how I look at it, is Peyton Manning was fucking phenomenal and was one of the best players of all time. Tom Brady, also one of the best players of all time. But up until, literally, as a Patriots fan, the entire time that he and Tom Brady played together, I had to hear and listen to talk radio and sports TV and whatever else, because at that point, podcasting was still in its infancy days. The comparisons between Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were, especially late in his career when Peyton was playing for Denver. And at that point, Brady had like 4 or 5, whatever it was. Oh, is Brady better than Manning? Is Manning better than Brady? And I'm sitting there going, Tom's got like 4 or 5 of these things. Yeah, Peyton's got the MVPs and everything else. So that's where I subscribe to that. Not necessarily Patrick Mahomes is Brady, Josh Allen's Peyton Manning. Just from the aspect of they are this generation's Manning Brady, in that they are going to be compared, and you're going to hear the debate about who's better between the two through their entire career.
The problem with that, no, I agree with you. You're going to this point. They are tied together because Buffalo traded the pick. It was supposed to be Kansas City for Mahomes. But then let me play devil's advocate with this, because I've been hit up about this at ODPH podcast on social media. If Mahomes went to Buffalo, would he have had the same success? And I'm going to say no.
No.
For one, he played college ball at Texas Tech.
Yes.
I don't think he is built for the elements that is Buffalo, New York.
Also, the coaching staff between the two. Sorry, Buffalo fans. Kansas City's better.
Well, that's the whole thing. Andy Reid took the time to develop him.
Yeah.
Josh Allen stood behind who? Exactly.
Ryan Fitzmagic?
Yeah. I'm sorry. When you have time that you can fully develop, and we're seeing this more and more.
And this is Patrick learning from Reid. Sure, he probably got some stuff from Alex Smith.
Sure.
But it wasn't Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre levels of experience.
Right. But this is the situation that in Buffalo, you didn't have this Josh is in on the fly.
Yep.
And
it would have been a similar situation if Patrick was there.
Right. And then how would things have played out? And I think that it would have been a lot different scenario.
Yeah.
And then plus wherever Josh would have wound up, because I mean, rumor has it, if certain moves had happened, he would have been in Denver. Way back when on draft night.
Yeah.
Then
That would have been interesting.
it's a weird parallel universe you can make the comparison with.
Yeah.
But that's how they're going to be tied together. And I think it's unfortunate because the edge goes to Mahomes here, as much as I hate saying this.
Oh, I agree.
But it's a situation that goes back to the common denominator here, and this is where I think the Bills need to make a coaching change.
You're probably not wrong. I mean, you've said since day one, and what was it, the Houston Texans Bills game from 2018, 2019, whatever the hell it was, where McDermott just can't do second half adjustments.
He gets so caught up in his own head, and he overthinks everything.
Agreed.
That is now costing them games, and this was a game that they had dead to rights.
They had him the first half, heavyweight title fight in boxing, punch for punch, tit for tat, the whole nine. And then you come out the second half, and you could tell, even as a casual fan, the tempo had switched, and the mood and the air had changed. And Kansas City adjusted because you went, and they mentioned it. They're like, there hasn't been a punt in this game, that it's just been score. And then all of a sudden you started having turnovers and punts and all this other stuff. Kansas City adjusted. Buffalo didn't.
And that's the thing that has haunted this organization since this regime has taken over.
And I can't help but wonder, is Stephon Diggs hurt, or was he hurt for this duration of time? Because the stat line I saw, the last 10 games of Buffalo had played, targets, Khalil Shakir, 38, Stephon Diggs, 80. Receiving yards, Khalil Shakir, 462, Stephon Diggs, 422.
Well,
I can't help but wonder, because he is a number one guy. He wants all the targets, and he wants this and that. We saw and heard the reports after last season, and it spilled into the offseason, then it bleeded into this season a little bit. And you look at the stat line he had for this season, the game log and specific game stats, the numbers are down. Was he hurt?
It's possible. I mean, if you want me to do percentages on this, I'll give it a 30%.
Okay.
I just think it's a situation that the Bills, until the emergence of James Cook, had become very one-dimensional, and teams were game planning for Cook. Not Cook. Diggs.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is Gabe Davis, for as everybody thought he's this amazing number two, he's a solid companion piece. But I don't think that he's a true number two in the sense that he'll take over games. I think that they're waiting on somebody to emerge. Shakir did.
Sure.
He runs great routes.
Sure.
So it does help take some pressure off. But I think for Diggs' case, I mean, it's hard to say. He could have been injured, but I think I agree with Josh Allen's assessment of it too. Teams game plan for him a lot better.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he did hit over 1,000 yards receiving this year, which, hey, good. But the reason I bring this up is you look at the game log and where it breaks it down game by game. I'm not going to read them all off, but of the 17 games they played this year, he only hit 100 yards receiving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
And his most yards received this year was against the Jacksonville Jaguars on October the 8th, where he hit 121 yards receiving. That was his high mark of the year.
Let me even throw this to you.
Okay.
How many games does Josh Allen have an interception?
A lot.
How many times is he going to Diggs with those?
Oh, that's a good question.
Just saying. I think that he understood that he wanted to please his wide receiver and doing the right thing. He was trying to get him the ball.
That could be.
But I think there was a lot of careless throws that went in that direction too, that it just didn't pan out, especially when defenses are game planning for you.
Fucking
for that.
Christ, this will be an easier stat to give you. Josh Allen this season only had 1, 2, 3 games without an interception this year.
Yeah,
that's the easier stat.
Well, like we say, he's the modern day Brett Favre in the playing sense.
This is true.
5 touchdowns or 5 interceptions. You get what you get.
This is true.
And this game he played very well, but I think moving forward, the Bills have to make a coaching change. As painful as that might sound for a lot of people, I think this is where it needs to go. I know the name that got thrown around. I know Rich from 3FN said it first, and then Rex Ryan did. Bill Belichick. It would be interesting, but I think the question really with Bill at this stage is what does he want to do at his age? And if he wants all that control.
I think he's had enough of the cold weather, personally.
Well, you never know. Like, I think if he wants to win now, I honestly thought the ideal team for him is the Chargers.
Yeah.
And I will stand by that statement.
I think the ideal spot for him is the NFC. Anybody, like, because the AFC, he's dealt with the AFC for his entire career.
Well,
and it's just a changing of, it's not even, I was going to say changing of the colors. It's not even a changing of the colors. It's still red, white, and blue. But you still got to deal with Patrick Mahomes. You still got to deal with Tua. You still got to deal with Aaron Rodgers because you got to figure he's coming back for another year with the Jets, and he's going to come back with a vengeance next year. You still got to deal with Cincinnati, and Joe Burrow's going to be coming back. Lamar Jackson is still there in Baltimore. Cleveland, whatever the hell they end up doing. You got Houston, which overperformed and exceeded everyone's expectations. Mahomes is still there, Justin Herbert, and whatever he ends up doing. So that's why if he really wants to hit that all-time wins thing and try and get another Super Bowl, easiest way for him is going to be the NFC.
But who's open though?
That's a good point.
See, this is a situation that if you're the Bills, you can entertain all day.
Oh, sure.
I just don't know where you go necessarily. And that's a situation that I think they need to get somebody in there that can get them to that next level that isn't going to freak out in the second half in the final 2 minutes of games. And I think, unfortunately, as much as McDermott has motivated his team, I think they plateaued in that sense.
Right now, they're eerily similar to the 2006 to 2009 Chargers. And I had a friend send me this, so I can't take credit for this, but the 2006 to 2009 Chargers, during the regular season in that period, 46-18, Buffalo Bills, this is from 2020 to this year. So the Chargers during that period, 06 to 09, 46-18, Bills 48-18.
Yeah.
In the playoffs, Chargers were 3-4, Bills are 5-4. Division titles, 4 each. Points per game, 28 apiece. Opponents' points per game, 19 for both teams. AFC championship game appearances, both have had 1. And divisional round appearances, both have had 4.
I mean,
if you want to go down as a champion, clearly something's got to change.
No, something does have to change. I mean, it's not wrong. And that's the situation Bills are going to have to look at moving forward. For Kansas City, listen, I'm just going to put it point blank. They shouldn't have won this game. They're playing on borrowed time. Baltimore is a totally focused team. I know the point spread right now is only Baltimore by 3.
And it was announced just a little bit ago as we record, the legends of the game that will be in attendance at the Ravens game. The Ravens have legends of the game. They attend the game. Some dude named Ray Lewis and some dude named Ed Reed.
Baltimore by 10. Mark the tape.
Lewis and Reed are going to be at the game.
Plus,
sign a 1-day contract, put him in the game.
Plus, no, they have Mark Andrews coming back too for Baltimore.
Yes.
And they have another defensive player. This is escaping me right now. Is it Humphreys, I think?
Something like that,
Is coming back as well, too. Listen, I'm just going to put it out there right now, unless the manifesto idea that I've unfortunately come across of Taylor Swift holding off the Lombardi Trophy at the center of the Super Bowl.
You almost manifested one with Kelsey Bowl Part 2.
Yeah.
And then the football gods nixed that idea.
Yeah.
And then you manifested another one.
Yeah.
Can you manifest another Patriots Super Bowl?
No, because I don't want to have bad things happen. I need the Bills to win one before I die. But I think in this situation, unless the weird karma happens and
like Lamar forgets how to play.
Yeah, this is going to be Baltimore all day.
Should be.
I think that they are smart enough to understand to take out the key weapons, and they're literally going to dare Mahomes to beat them.
They're going to dare the other receivers to beat him.
Because this is going to be a low-scoring game. This could be a literally 13-3 game, as wild as it sounds, or I'll even say 20-10.
The stat line to keep an eye on is going to be how many rushing attempts the Ravens have.
Yeah, they're going to just run it.
They're between Lamar and their other running backs. I'm going to say right now, as a team, 35 to 40 rushing attempts.
I take that.
Somewhere
easy.
Between 35 and 40.
That's what's going to be the interesting game there, because I fully think it's going to be Baltimore punching their ticket.
Yeah.
And
I'm hoping Detroit, man.
I would love to see Detroit.
I would love to see Detroit do it.
I would love to see Detroit, but honestly, I think San Francisco got a wake-up call last week.
Could be.
And I think that it's all going to come down to that secondary.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel Detroit's biggest weakness is right now. And I think Brock Purdy is going to exploit that.
Probably.
But we'll have to wait to see how it all shapes up, though. But definitely interesting headlines coming out of this past weekend's divisional round games. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH pod. Who you got going on to the Super Bowl? Let's talk about that. We gave you our predictions. And what do you think about the fate of the teams that have punched their way to the offseason? The Bills, the Packers, a lot of storylines heading there. So let's talk some football, shall we? We're going to take a quick break first, though. We'll be right back.
Do you like comic books?
What about movies and TV shows?
Well, we may be the show for you.
We're Hops Geek News, a weekly podcast that discusses comics, movies, and TV shows while featuring a beer of the week.
Every week we chat about what we messed up on the week before, and then we dive into what we're reading and watching, as well as some news.
We then wrap it up with a geek-themed topic of the week.
You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts by searching Hops Geek News.
Cheers.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we have to recap an interesting weekend of fights in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
A little event went down, generated a little bit of buzz.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, what was the event?
So the event was UFC 297, taking place north of the border here in the United States and in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, at the Scotiabank Arena, which had 18,559 folks in attendance for what ended up being a very interesting card, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this one, I would say the main events really were the generating buzz here, but we'll kind of go over the main card super quick until we get to a little more of a deep dive here.
Yeah, so the first fight you had take place on the main card was in the featherweight division, where you had Movsar Evloev defeat Arnold Allen via unanimous decision, all judges scoring the fight 29-28.
Surprising to see Allen take that loss. I did not expect that to happen. He was one of those fighters that was on that verge of making the big breakthrough. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out moving forward.
Hey, that's why, they fight the fights. Looking at the rankings as we currently record, Evloev jumping up 4 spots in the featherweight division.
Yeah.
Currently ranked number 5. Only Brian Ortega, Ilya Topura, Yair Rodriguez, Max Holloway, and the champ, Alexander Volkanovski, ahead of him. Fun Volkanovski fact I saw yesterday. He has now, or probably now since I saw it yesterday, eclipsed John Jones' record, quote unquote, or like the length of time John Jones had as light heavyweight champion. Volkanovski is at like over 1,100 days holding the featherweight title.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, wait, it's been that long? And I looked it up, and yeah, it's been that long. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is kind of wild to see. But, I mean, featherweight division could obviously use some kind of buzz. I mean, Volve couldn't keep going, but, I mean, that's how stacked that division's quietly getting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to wait to see. But, yeah, Volkanovski definitely has a couple interesting fights in the horizon, too.
Next up for 297, though, was the middleweight division, where you had Chris Curtis defeat Marc-Andre Barrault via split decision. 2 judges scoring the fight 30-27, the third scoring the fight 28-29.
Close fight.
Yeah, huh?
No real argument about that one.
Yeah. Then in the welterweight division, you had Neil Magny defeat Mike Mellott via TKO at 4 minutes and 45 seconds of the third round.
Big upset there.
Woo-hoo!
Neil Magny still getting it done, surprisingly, at this stage, because he's, like I say, he's one of those fighters, he'll scrap in every fight.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to be a tough opponent, but he's not on that level, in my opinion, like, he's not in that conversation of, like, the top tier.
Neil Magny scrapping at the ripe old age of 36.
Yes, but he definitely is a sound performer, and this is this has to be a big upset in my opinion. So this is very interesting to see what he goes from here. But he's the guy that will fight anybody, though, and that's one thing I love about Magny.
Magny got a slight bump in the welterweight rankings as we record, jumping up 1 space to the 12th position.
Okay.
Next up was in the women's bantamweight division. This was the co-main event of the evening, and this was for the vacant UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship. And you had Raquel Pennington emerge victorious, defeating Mayra Bueno Silva via unanimous decision. 2 judges scoring the card 49-46. The third judge scoring the card 49-45.
Well, this one was a test of wills, in my opinion, and this is something that Pennington, in my opinion, needed very badly.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I've been very strongly saying here on the show for quite some time.
Yep.
If she lets her hands go, she can do some damage. And she finally did, but Bueno Silva was a very, very ready opponent and was doing all she could to, weather the storm that Pennington was throwing.
Because, goddamn, I'm looking at the stats here, UFC.com, because they give you all the stats if you go to the fight card on their website. For the full fight total strikes, Pennington threw 265 compared to 96 from Silva. Oh my God.
Yeah, Pennington has hands for days.
Pennington has hands for days, and I'm going to say it right now. Silva has a body of titanium.
Yes.
God damn.
Yeah, this was, like I say, a methodical pace to it. And like I say, it might not have been the most exciting fight for a lot of fans, but
Right.
It's a situation, too, when you start diving into...
You get the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, the championship rounds. I mean, this is a situation that when you see fights like this play out, they're not going to be, quote-unquote, show stealers.
Right.
But they're still solid fights. I mean, that's why it is an art form, and that's why it's mixed martial arts.
And like you said, digging into a little more to the nitty-gritty, this was Silva's first fight that went into the championship deep waters. Every other fight she has fought in the UFC has not gone past the third round because this is her first championship fight. Mm-hmm. So kudos to her and kudos to Pennington.
Yeah, so this is a huge win for Pennington.
Yeah.
And then the question now becomes who's next, because obviously with Amanda Nunes vacating the title.
And retiring, yep.
Yeah, this is a situation that you'd have to say safe money is on Julia Pena.
Currently the number one ranked fighter. I am looking at Raquel Pennington's record, and I'm not going to run through everybody, but just doing a quick scan of the names of who she's fought. Has not fought Juliana Pena.
Yeah, so that fight would make a lot of sense to me.
I mean, it's easy booking.
But there's also a signee that came in
Oh, boy.
that is debuting at this weight class for UFC 300. And Pat, who is that?
That would be Kayla Harrison. Now, if you're not familiar with who she is, get familiar because holy fuck. She was previously with the Professional Fighters League, or the PFL. Just reading through some of the accolades on her on her Wikipedia page. She is a one-time World Juniors Championship. That was in 2008 in Bangkok. She is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-time gold medalist at the International Judo Federation Grand Prix. She is a 3-time gold medalist at the International Judo Federation Grand Slam. She is a 2-time gold medal winner at the World's Masters, 2-time gold medal winner at the Pan American Championships, 2-time gold medal winner at the Pan American Games, a 1-time gold medal winner at the World Championships. Oh, by the way, she's also a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, once in 2012 in London, another time in 2016 in Rio. And then you look at her mixed martial arts record. Well, let's jump to, she's got her judo record. She is 45-7. And then you go to her mixed martial arts record and her professional record in 17 professional matches. She has 16 wins, 6 of them by knockout, 6 are by submission, 4 by decision, and only 1 loss. That loss coming to Larissa Pacheco at PFL 10 in November of 2022 was a unanimous decision loss.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. We know that she is now booked to fight Holly Holm at UFC 300. If Harrison, who usually fights at 145, if I'm not mistaken, disposes of Holly Holm easily, mark my word, she's getting an immediate title shot. And I don't think there's any question of that.
Looking at the notes specifically in her record, because it doesn't give you the actual weight class, you just kind of got to discern some stuff. Her last fight was a catchweight 150 bout. Prior to that, she was fighting in the lightweight division in the PFL.
Yeah. So, like I say,
So she could be in that 145 range.
which, I mean, to drop down to 135, that is a lot of weight to cut for fights.
Yeah.
Harrison, like I said, if Harrison can do this and is comfortable at this weight class, I mean, this is a big win for the UFC no matter what.
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's first and foremost. And I think that now Harrison's committed to doing this. Yeah, there's no question about that. And I'm going to say fully right now, if she wins this fight, you can already pencil her in for the next contender for Pennington if it's not Julia Pena.
Holly Holm, currently the number 5 ranked fighter in the women's bantamweight division.
Right. So that's going to be the situation playing out there.
Clearly, Dana and the powers that be are high on Kayla Harrison.
Without question. I mean, pedigree says itself. So she is going to come in, make a lot of noise, and then I'm even going to throw something else out there.
Fucking Christ! I'm sorry. I'm looking at her record and just like she didn't have a decision win until her 4th fight in her professional career. Armbar submission, knockout, She had a unanimous decision win. Holy fuck.
Yeah, well, because here's another idea they could even do.
Okay.
Nunez has been teasing about possibly coming back.
Oh.
I would say this.
Yo.
If you want box office,
Oh, yo.
if Harrison wins, put her against Nunez.
I'm on board.
I will tell you right now, that would be one of the biggest fights in MMA history.
Yeah, you can do it.
Marks the tape right now. A lot of interesting storylines playing out here with the new champion. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't the only championship bout on this card.
No, so the main event was for the UFC middleweight championship, where you had Sean Strickland defending against Dricus du Plessis. And you had Dricus du Plessis emerge victorious to become your new UFC middleweight champion, I should say, winning by split decision. The judges scoring this contest 47-48, 48-47, and 48-47.
Well, in my opinion, I think Strickland got robbed on this one.
Okay.
This was a very close fight, like you alluded to. Mm-hmm. Scorecard kind of said it all.
Yeah.
And in this situation, I have to say, okay, they're not going to do an immediate rematch.
Right.
Which I'm okay with, but I'm not, because I felt the fight was close enough.
Right.
Du Plessis really looks strong in the middle rounds. The last round, I thought that Strickland looked really, really good. Mm-hmm. But I think in this kind of situation, you have to really step back and go, okay, with this all playing out, what makes the most sense? And I think that obviously when you talk about fights, Israel Adesanya is lurking around. Mm-hmm. It's box office.
Yeah.
I think that that's the fight they're going to make. But I thought that this one, if they decided to do an immediate rematch, I would have been okay with. Mm-hmm. I would not have had an issue in any which way, shape, and or form.
Right.
And especially with being a split decision, I just think that, maybe this would have been the route to go. But with Adesanya lurking around, mm-hmm. obviously if you can try booking that for 300, it would make sense. But, I just think with the fight being this close, like, you have to run it back.
The fight ultimately came down to the third round, because I'm looking at the judges' scorecards, courtesy of UFC.com/scorecards. And all three judges for this fight scored the first round. Let me say it this way, make it easier. They scored the first round to Sean Strickland. Mm-hmm. They scored the second round to Dricus. They scored the fourth round, to Dricus. And they scored the fifth round to Strickland. Where it comes into, debate, and ultimately where we got to the split decision, two of the three judges scored that third round to Dricus. The third judge gave the third round to Strickland.
Yeah.
So it ultimately comes down to, who did you have winning that third round fight?
Yeah, it's a great debate too. Mm-hmm. Especially there was I didn't catch it, but I did see the aftermath though. There was a headbutt that was involved.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So it's tough, but Du Plessis though stepped up to the occasion. But like I say, in this kind of situation, I would be okay with them running it back. I just don't see it. I just don't think they're going to. They've already said they're not going to do it, which I think Strickland unfortunately has to win a couple fights before he's back in that title contention.
Well, he is currently ranked number 1. Israel Adesanya is number 2. This is in the middleweight division, by the way. Robert Whittaker is number 3. Jared Cannonier is number 4, and Marvin Vettori is number 5.
Yeah, Strickland's got to get somebody in that top 5.
Oh, by the way, there's some dude named Hamzat Chimaev lurking at number 9.
Chimaev is an interesting character as well, too, because I would not doubt them sneaking him in to fight Du Plessis.
Could be.
The one thing is, you have to get the temp of the room of the audience.
Yeah.
When was the last time Chimaev fought?
I can look it up.
Because that's the situation that they're now dancing around with, because, let's face it, at one point, he was fighting, it's felt like every week, and then he wasn't.
Last fight was against Kamaru Usman on October 21st of last year.
Right.
And was a majority decision win.
Yeah, he absolutely took it to Usman, which, speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. But now it's a situation where he could move up a weight class and go there.
Yeah.
But the only thing I would be fearful of, and we've touched upon this, when he's in that main event spotlight, is he going to blow weight again?
That is the question.
We have to remember that was a thing. Obviously, him against Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
So if you give him that big spotlight, is he going to be able to handle that and all the pressure that comes with making weight? You're the marquee matchup on the pay-per-view. So you kind of have to, fix all this into the equation too. But I mean, Duplessis has the doors wide open for what he wants to do. And like I say, I think the fight with Strickland would make a lot of sense. I just don't think they're going to do it. I mean, I think they are going to book him and Adesanya. I think they're going to do a rematch there between those two. And I would say this. I would put Strickland against Chimaev.
Well, if you ask Chimaev and he gets his say, he wants Duplessis at UFC 300.
Yeah.
Reading from an article on ESPN.com, courtesy of Brett Okamoto, quote, undefeated UFC middleweight Khamzat Chimaev said he saw, quote, nothing special during Saturday's title fight between Dricus Duplessis and Sean Strickland and is ready to take the belt from Duplessis at UFC 300 in April. Chimaev hasn't fought since he defeated former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman at UFC 294 in October. The 29-year-old suffered a torn ligament in his hand during that fight and said he came down with a lung infection afterwards that hospitalized him for a week. He has since returned to training in Dubai, however, and is eager to book a title fight. Quote, for me, Strickland won the fight, but it was a close fight, Chimaev told ESPN on Monday. But it was nothing special, nothing that made me think these guys are somebody. I see I can finish them both. I go to a fight, I always try to finish somebody. I didn't see one of them going crazy trying to finish. They were both going for 5 rounds, close quote.
Yeah.
So that explains why we haven't seen him in a while. Torn ligament plus a lung infection. But if he gets his way, we'll see him in April.
I mean, I think it'd be smart money to put him on the card if he can go.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's physically able to put him on there against anybody. I don't know Strickland about recovery time from the fight.
Right.
But I would say this. If he can fight Duplessis, I'd make that fight.
Yeah.
If he can fight Strickland, I'd make that fight. Or, if Adesanya is ready to come back, I'd make that fight. Like I say, there's a lot of headlines that can go here with a new champion. I just think in this situation they should run it back. And I'm usually not a proponent for that, but I think Strickland...
When it's this close.
It's this close, and like I say, I understand that Strickland is a little bit of a interesting character.
Yeah.
Like, he's as genuine as you're going to see.
Yeah.
Like, his views are his views.
Yeah.
I do not argue with him because he's authentic. He's not Colby Covington.
Yeah.
And I know that maybe that will rub some people the wrong way, but
you
know what? He is who he is, and I don't think that should be held against him.
He's upfront about it, and you can tell it's not a character.
No, absolutely not. So I think that they're smart. They book him in a high profile match. Like I said, him and Chimaev would be some fireworks on a promo. But
oh Jesus,
we will have to wait and see about that.
UFC needs. Remember, like 5-10 years ago, whatever it was, you had those like multi-man, multi-woman press conferences where it was all the champs, all of this male and female. Please bring those back. Those are fucking amazing.
Yeah, they're long overdue for that.
Oh my God.
But in the meantime, though, we have a lot of headlines to talk about, so let's make sure we do that. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts of the fallout of UFC 297? Who did you think won the main event, and where do you think all the champions go from here? Because now it's a whole new playing field and a lot of great fights we can make. So that said, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey all, I'm Frank. Join me and my friends as we talk about all things geek. Here at Geek Freaks Podcast, we go over the weekly news of everything in geekdom, from movies to TV, video games, and comic books. We also have a growing YouTube community. Join us as we go over everything in your geek life and share in the love of geekdom.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and it's time to talk a little pro wrestling.
Oh, baby.
It is that time of year, folks. The road to WrestleMania officially kicks off for the WWE with the Royal Rumble.
The roads to WrestleMania?
Well, maybe not, because there's been a lot of headlines since the last we've talked pro wrestling here.
There's been a few.
On the ODPH.
There's been a few.
But there's one story that has kind of eclipsed everything. Going into the Royal Rumble, and that was a little late-breaking news that we got to kind of deep dive and give our thoughts about.
Yeah, so the news came down yesterday as we record and was announced, and I'm reading from an article on WWE.com, where it says, quote, WWE, part of TKO Group Holding and Netflix, announced today a long-term partnership that will bring WWE's flagship weekly program, Raw, to the world's leading entertainment service. This marks a major programming shift as Raw leaves linear television for the first time since its inception 31 years ago. Beginning in January 2025, Netflix will be the exclusive new home for Raw in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Latin America, among other territories, with additional countries and regions to be added over time. Likewise, as part of the agreement, Netflix will also become the home for all WWE shows and specials outside of the United States, as well as available, inclusive of Raw and WWE's other weekly shows, SmackDown and NXT, as well as the company's premium live events, including WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and the Royal Rumble. WWE's award-winning documentaries, original series, and forthcoming projects will also be available on Netflix internationally beginning in 2025. Close quote.
Huge move.
Massive.
Huge.
Like when it's getting reported by like the Associated Press and, major news networks and beyond, the dirt sheets and some of the sports pages like Sports Illustrated, which I, thoughts out to those guys.
Yeah.
But like when it's getting reported by like ABC, CBS, the Associated Press, this is big news.
Well, the one thing that we now live in as fans is the Endeavor era.
Uh-huh.
And TKO is definitely making some big moves.
They'll say the other one that got announced was The Rock is on the board of directors.
Mm-hmm. That's a very interesting time period because they decided to media blitz everything on Tuesday.
Do you think that's what Rock meant when he was on Raw and he said head of the table?
Possibly. He could be swerving everybody, which would be amazing.
I was just going to say.
Which, for everybody that's in a little feeling, so to speak, about what's going on with Cody Rhodes, if that's what he's referring to, that could be an ultimate play on words, and kudos to them for getting one over on everybody.
Also, I'm just going to say right now, a little nepotism. Same day he becomes on the board of governors, his daughter becomes GM of NXT.
Interesting time.
Calling it out right now.
But this is still a major win for WWE.
Oh, it's massive.
For Netflix, this is a huge shot in the arm that they needed. Some new life, adrenaline getting pumped in the veins, so to speak.
Yeah. Because
this is their first, in my recollection, attempts of doing like episodic television in the form of sporting events.
In terms of like a live broadcast, the only things they've really done is they've done some comedy specials,
right? That
have done live. I know there's been a couple of like reality shows they've tried doing live. I know there was one a couple of years ago they tried, but like it was so popular the servers crashed and they couldn't air it live, so they had to air it traditionally how they do and just drop it for everyone. And I know they've been dabbling into the sports stuff more. They had the quarterback show they did, which is kind of like it's almost like a Hard Knocks thing, but following a couple quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I know Marcus Mariota, Patrick Mahomes, and I want to say Kirk Cousins were a part of that. I know they've got the NBA one that's coming. That's in a similar format, with LeBron and a bunch of others. They've got the Formula One show that they do, and they've got a NASCAR one coming too. So they're starting to dip into the sports world a little bit more, and they kind of weekly, week to week follow people stuff a little bit more. But this is going to be their first foray into something that drops weekly, and is going to be live, because obviously we're talking about this just under a year away, so things could change. But from the reports and the sounds of things, this is going to be a live broadcast. Because there's going to be commercials and there's going to be what have you, that it's going to be kind of like a more traditional feel of how you're used to. But from the reports I've read, it sounds like if you are on the ad-free tier of Netflix, it sounds like you're going to get kind of like a satellite feed type of thing where like you keep seeing the action. You don't go to commercial breaks. But that could change. We'll see what happens. But no, this is huge because as the article says, Raw has been on television for its entire duration. Yes, it's changed networks, a couple times, but for 30 years, it's been on TV, and in less than a year now, it's not going to be.
Mm-hmm. It's a crazy idea to kind of wrap our heads around.
Yeah, and I know some people, we got to clear one little thing up. I know some people are getting confused by the wordage in the article. If you're in the United States, the PLEs and the past episodes and what have you are still going to be on Peacock. That deal runs through 2026, if I'm not mistaken, or it's up in 2026, one of the two. The only way, or the only spaces the premium live events are going to be on Netflix is if it's overseas. And the way Nick Khan explained it on the Pat McAfee show It's going to be on Netflix unless you're in a country or a region where they already have a pre-existing deal. The example he gave is India. They've got a deal with somebody over in India where the premium live events are on a specific thing over there, so it won't be Netflix. So wherever you are come 2025, you're going to have to figure out where it's going, which is going to be a little bit of a headache for all of maybe a day or so, but once you get it figured out, it'll be easy.
And it'll be a real question about who's going to be the champion then.
Uh-huh.
But in the short term, who's going to be punching their ticket for WrestleMania this year, all goes through the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
A 30-person match for the men's and women's division that the winner gets a title shot against the champion of their choice at WrestleMania taking place this year in Philadelphia. So we've got the card as it's slated right now.
Yes.
So let's get into it.
Yeah, so this takes place this Saturday from Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. That is the home of the Tampa Bay Rays. So, hey, at least they get to see a little bit of winning in that field. Hey-o.
Oh, go ahead.
Listen, it's at least I can say what I say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes place this Saturday. Of course, you've got the men's Royal Rumble match, which is it is the 30-man Royal Rumble match for a World Championship match at WrestleMania, as you alluded to. Got to say, I like this year we don't know everyone who's in it.
Yeah.
Because the currently announced wrestlers we know of are Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Gunther, Chad Gable, Otis, Akira Tozawa, Kofi Kingston, and Damian Priest.
Yeah, I love the field so far. They've been teasing it. They haven't fully revealed the deck. And that's something that the Royal Rumble has always been something fans will look forward to as the surprises.
Well, and that's where it's at its best, because I know a couple of years ago, we knew like 27 of the 30, so that really took away, because that's the mystique and that's the intrigue, that even if you haven't watched or kept up on wrestling for this year, you can still jump in for this and watch it. And when you ultimately know 27 of the 30 people are going to show up, when you only got three people who are mysteries that are going to be either returning from quote unquote retirement or call ups from NXT or somebody like the one year with Mickie James who was in another promotion altogether, it really takes away the mystery and the mystique. So the fact we only know 11 out of 30, I'm all for.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in for it. I mean, obviously, the two front runners you have to think are Cody Rhodes and CM Punk for various storyline purposes.
If you're playing a drinking game on Saturday, take a shot. Every time they mention Cody Rhodes, could become the first two-time back-to-back Royal Rumble winner since Stone Cold Steve Austin. You might not make it out of there sober.
Like I said, the field is wide open on this one. Pad, before you kind of give your prediction for a winner, any surprises? Anybody you think there's like a lock and leap?
Well, I think that you're going to get some surprises with this, just because you think back to when Triple H took things over at SummerSlam a couple of years ago. First match on the main card was, you had the Bianca Belair match where she beat Becky, and then you had Bayley show up, and Dakota Kai and Io Shirai, then now Io Sky, made their surprise return. So Triple H in his time as Booker has always been about those surprise returns. I would expect we're going to get some surprise returns. No, I don't think we're going to see MJF. I wouldn't be surprised to see Okada, just because I know Rich told me, because I'm not the biggest New Japan watcher, I do know he finished his last match over the weekend. So where we previously thought the Royal Rumble was out, maybe not so much. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Nakamura. Shane Helms, Hurricane always usually makes an appearance at these. Big Show, no, Big Show signed to AEW. I was going to say Big Show, but no Big Show. It's going to be interesting. I'll say this, X-Pac, because I know he's playing like I can't go, I don't have enough time, I need a little bit more time to get. I wouldn't be surprised to see X-Pac make a run in. I know there's one name that he threw out himself on Monday Night Raw. Please no. I know you and I had the same reaction when Hulk Hogan mentioned, I might have one more in me. Please no.
No.
Please no.
Yeah, I will say he will not be there. At least I can't see him doing the match.
No.
I could see him doing a quick promo video or something to lead in.
I mean,
reasons, but
I think if he shows up for anything, it's probably going to be WrestleMania, just because it's the 40th WrestleMania. He kicked off WrestleMania with Hulkamania and all that. Like, I could see that, but for this,
Well, I mean, Tampa is close to St. Petersburg, so I think that might be the only reason he might show.
Yeah.
But no, if I have to guess locks, I'll do this locks and leap style. I think lock is Okada.
Okay.
If anybody has not been following, the biggest star of New Japan Pro Wrestling is now leaving the company. He is slated to be heading over to the United States to join either WWE or AEW, so depending on how you're feeling about this, a lot of intrigue is involving him, but I would have to say I have a feeling he is definitely set to come to the WWE.
Okay.
What better place to introduce him to the fans than the Royal Rumble? It'll be an explosive pop, much like when AJ Styles debuted.
Just don't fuck up the camera angle like you did AJ Styles.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to. I think the production value for Okada coming in is going to be huge, and then where he goes from there is anybody's guess. The leap aspect, I will go out and say, we're going to just have some fun with this one. I'm going to say it's MJF.
Ooh, okay.
I think...
The meltdown on the IWC, if that happens.
You know what? Even if he doesn't sign officially, if he comes in just for one night because he's a free agent...
Quote, unquote, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be something to get people talking.
Because there's a lot of folks online who are adamant he's re-signed with AEW.
Well, I think for him, in his situation, I don't think we know technically.
No, I don't think we do.
He's taken off a lot of time to heal up, which, I mean, he's needed to do. So, I mean, I don't know the status of, like, how good his shoulder is and such.
Correct.
So, but if he had to come in for a quick run-in, then, you know, I could see it happening. I just think that it would be kind of interesting to see how it plays out because if WWE offers him enough money to leave and he's a free agent, then
Money
he could.
talks.
Well, that's the situation about with AEW that unless they locked him up, but I don't believe they did.
They would have announced it by now.
Well, yeah, I think that
Because Mox, correct me if I'm wrong, Moxley, when they announced his deal wasn't even up. And they announced that he had signed a deal to keep him there for like whatever it was, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
They didn't wait. They just announced it.
No, I mean, and I will say this, for as critical as we are of AEW, hi, folks, I thought they did the smart move by getting the belt off him.
Right.
So now it kind of puts that intrigue in the air.
Sure.
So is it possible? Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I'm going
Anything's
to say.
possible.
I'm gonna-
CM Punk's back in WWE. Anything's possible.
I think it would make for a quick, one and done for him to be in, and then let's have the internet burn down.
Could be.
And then winner-wise, Pat, who you got?
I'm going to say CM Punk. Listen, I would love to see Cody Rhodes go back-to-back, and I know they're going to hype that up the entire time whenever he comes out. But I just think, listen, this entire year from Royal Rumble 39, WrestleMania 39 up to WrestleMania 40 has been about the trials and tribulations of Cody Rhodes. And just, he almost, summited the mountain and was almost at the top, winning the belt, which, nobody in his family ever did in WWE. And he almost got there. And it's been, getting knocked down the mountain and climbing back up. And just, it'd be too cookie cutter to have him do it again. Mm-hmm. So to have him have to go that extra step and go, and basically do a storyline where I have to win at the Elimination Chamber because if I don't, I'm not going to be on WrestleMania. Which we all know is bullshit. It's storyline. Of course. It's just them painting the picture for the story. He'd still be on WrestleMania even if he didn't win the Elimination Chamber or the Royal Rumble. But it makes for a better story that like you try to sell it on, I'll say this. Cody will be in the final 4. He'll be in the final 3. I don't know if he'll be the final 2. That might be a little too much. We'll see. But I think it's going to be CM Punk.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be CM Punk. I think because they're ultimately going to set up something for WrestleMania involving him. Mm-hmm. I don't think Gunther, I know, has become a hot rumor as of late.
Right, yeah.
But I still think that he's got Brock Lesnar, who could also make an appearance here as well.
Boy, howdy. Give me that fight.
Yeah, I think that he is probably a safe bet for a surprise. I think they're going to set up that for Mania.
Probably.
So that would make a lot more sense there. And I agree with you. I think Cody's story is going to take some dips and dives before we finally get to whatever match they're going to do for him at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But I could also see it being a situation that him and Punk go over at the same time, and Punk, claims he lands first, and they have to kind of have a little face-off for it, too. So I don't think this will be as just clean-cut as everybody wants it to be.
And then, obviously, there is the Women's Royal Rumble match, which is a 30-woman Royal Rumble match for a Women's Championship match at WrestleMania 40. And we only know 6 participants out of the 30 for this year, which, again, love. We don't know everybody. We barely even know half. So the participants that are announced as of this recording are Bayley, Nia Jax, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Maxine Dupree, and Ivy Nile.
Very stacked lineup thus far. I mean,
very good.
Even for 6 names, that's still a great lineup for the match.
Mm-hmm.
And that's leaving a lot of possibilities. I think you're going to have a nice influx from NXT.
Yes. Agreed.
So
Tiffany Stratton, I'd expect make an appearance.
Tiffany's my lock to be
because she's been off NXT or not really featured as much as of late.
Well, they had her in that little feud with Fallon Henley for a little bit, and then I think that they're purposely having her off TV for now to be a big surprise at the Rumble.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Pat, who's your locks and leaps for this one?
I'm going to give you 2 leaps.
Okay.
Because I'm feeling generous. Trinity.
Okay.
Naomi. And Sasha. Mercedes.
Oh, okay.
I'm going out on that limb. And then for my lock, I'm going to say Alexa.
Oh, that's right.
I'm going to say Alexa. She got married. She had to Ryan Cabrera. Yes, the musician Ryan Cabrera. They had a kid together. I think she might. We haven't really heard much from her. In terms of she's doing this, she's doing that. Like, been kind of quiet. Understandably so. Just had a kid. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. But I think she might not be back for like a full run. But you know what? One night appearance. She lives in the Florida area. One night appearance at the Royal Rumble. I'm going to say Alexa Bliss.
Okay. For me, I'm going to say lock Tiffany Stratton. I think that's an easy one. Leap, I'm going to say Julia.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to get the internet talking. And
I think the other one that's kind of obvious at this point is going to be, what's her name that they signed from? She was with AEW that they signed.
Oh, Jade Cargill.
Jade Cargill's the obvious one.
Yeah, Jade is more of a lock at this point too.
Yeah,
I think Jade will be one of the final 4 in this.
Could be.
But I don't think she ultimately wins. I think
I'm going to go a little opposite of you. I'm going to say she's middle of the pack just to give her enough time to really showcase her stuff.
Yeah, I could see that too. But I don't think she's going to win this one.
No, I don't either.
I am actually going to go out in a little bit of a surprise, and I'm going to say it's Bayley.
I agree with you. Because the tease and the rumors and the theory that, damage control is going to implode and they're going to kick Bayley out or turn on Bayley have been rampant since Crown Jewel. Mm-hmm. I think we're finally going to get that.
Yeah.
It's been alluded to. It's been hinted at. It's been kind of teased. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I could definitely see Becky Lynch being in that conversation too, but I think they telegraphed it too much on Monday.
Oh, the other possibility I'm going to give you, AJ Lee.
That would be something too.
Well, not a full again, much like Alexa Bliss, not a full return, just a one night thing.
Yeah, you could come in and just make a quick appearance.
Because understandably, she has not gotten the flowers she deserves for the work she did in the Divas era.
Agreed. Yeah, I have to go with you on that one.
Going to go with AJ shows up, which I'm going to mark out when I hear that music because it's been a minute since we've heard her music.
Oh yeah, that place will explode. I'm all here for it.
I got a couple more matches to talk about on the card. It's not going to be a full card because those Rumble matches are going to take up, probably
at least an hour each.
An hour each, if not more. So the other 2 matches we know of in a singles match for the United States Championship, Logan Paul is defending against Kevin Owens.
This is going to be a great match. Logan Paul, love him or hate him, can actually wrestle. He is everything WWE looks for.
Yeah.
I fully see him retaining.
I do too.
Kevin Owens will put him over. This is going to be actually probably one of the sleeper matches of the night. But yeah, this is all Logan Paul.
No, I agree with you there. If this were any other time of the year, even if this were like SummerSlam or any other pay-per-view during the year, I'd say Kevin Owens, but you're this close to WrestleMania. Paul's going to be the champ going into Mania.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they have him do a match for Elimination Chamber in Australia.
I could see that happening too.
He's got a again, like you said, love him or hate him. He's got a big international presence. He got a lot of fans overseas. Look at the video he did. I believe was on the Today Show, the Australian version with KSI. Mm-hmm. There was a hell of a lot of crowds outside that building.
Yeah,
he's got a big fan. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have him do a match for the Elimination Chamber in Australia. The other match we got to mention is the Fatal 4-Way match for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, where Roman Reigns is defending his belt against Randy Orton, AJ Styles, and L.A. Knight.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing with this whole storyline? Love the storyline. Nick Aldis is amazing as a general manager.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Oh, my God. Like, I'm aware of the guy. I knew who he was, and I'd seen some of his promo work and some of his work in the ring. I did not expect to enjoy his work as a general manager as quickly as I have. The moment he had, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, where it was supposed to be a triple threat to figure out who faces Roman at the Rumble, but then Roman came out and interfered, and Nick Aldis without a mic, but the camera operator was holding, still picked it up, said to Paul Heyman, he goes, "Hey, congratulations. You've just earned yourself a Fatal 4-Way match with Roman against all 3 of these gentlemen." Just the way he's presenting himself and delivering his lines on screen, chef's kiss.
Yeah, absolutely. He's such a professional. I'm so happy he's in WWE now, finally.
And he's not ruling out a run.
You know what? He'd make a great surprise for the Rumble as well.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I don't think he's doing that for this situation.
Could be.
I do see him getting involved in this match in some way, shape, or capacity.
Probably.
Obviously, with a 4-way like this, it's tough to predict a winner. Mm-hmm. But if we have to, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's still going to be Roman Reigns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're ready to move the title off him yet just before Mania. I think this is going to be a great match. I think you are going to have maybe a Rock run-in at the end, possibly, if they're going to set that up. Which, I mean, they're heavily alluding to doing that at Mania, but it becomes a question of him with the title.
Right. Well, I mean, you look at some of the comments Rock made because he was on ESPN First Take the other day when they were making all their announcements. Mm-hmm. And the way he was kind of alluding to it, because that got brought up on First Take, you know, the way he kind of presented it is it's going to be, if he faces Roman, it's going to be at WrestleMania, but he didn't necessarily say it's going to be this WrestleMania. Could be another WrestleMania. No, I agree with you for this match, though. It's going to be Roman. I'm going to go even so far as to he's going to stack all three of them. Because I think at this point to keep the bloodline storyline, because people will say, and I admit a little bit, it's getting a little old to see Solo and Jimmy come out and run the interference and the nonsense and the shenanigans. You know, for at least this match, Roman's got to win without a ref bump, without, you know, one of the bloodline members coming out. You know, there's enough guys in this match that, you know, you can have some shenanigans go on or what have you. You know, you got AJ and his feelings playing heel, face, whatever he's going back and forth with. But I think for this, I'm going to say Roman, and I'm going to say he's going to stack all three of them. He's going to pin all three of them in the ring.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he'll do all three. I mean, that's a great idea, though, but I don't think he's going to do that. I think he does win outright.
Right.
And then, depending on how they want to set things up, I think somebody will interrupt his celebration at the end.
Could be.
Whether it's Cody, whether it's CM Punk teasing, or if it's The Rock coming out, too.
See, I think this match will go on first. Because I think they're going.
Oh no, that won't come out first. They'll do one of the. They'll do the women's rumble first.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because of the time constraints.
That's true.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'd say.
Because if Roman on last, he's on first.
Yeah, I was gonna say they might actually end with that because I mean, remember they did that last year with Sami Zayn.
Right, but that was the whole Sami Zayn storyline, and
right.
You don't necessarily have that much of interest.
No,
there's still interest.
But if The Rock is involved,
yeah,
Rock's coming out last because they're not going to do the Rumble after that.
Yeah, that's true. If Roman goes on last, something's going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But there's a lot of storylines going on with that, so we'll definitely have to talk to you, the ODPH Society, about that. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts about the Royal Rumble this weekend? Who are your picks for the men's and women's division? And what's your thoughts about Raw going to Netflix? Let's have a deep dive conversation about that, shall we? And speaking of deep dive conversations, always remember to check out Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wrestling Night Live on Nerd Initiative, YouTube, and streaming services. Got a lot of conversations going on there this week as well. So that said, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is Tom from Tom Joe Lou,
This is Matt from Sideroom Sounds.
and you're listening to ODPH Podcast.
Wanna go where no one knows my name, to the desert, the oceans, or the plains. 'Cause I wanna...
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pat, what you got?
Got a couple things to talk about, first of which is obviously the local minute, and looking at the standings for the Federal Prospects Hockey League. That is, of course, the league our local Binghamton Black Bears play in. And looking at the Empire Division, another week, Binghamton still in first place.
Let's go.
Through 29 games played, the Black Bears have a record of 19 wins, 3 losses, 6 losses in either overtime or shootouts, no overtime wins, and then 1 shootout win. They've got 65 points. They are ahead of Motor City, who has 46 points. Danbury's in third place with 44 points. Watertown's in fourth place with 31 points. And Elmira in last place with 25 points. Looking at the schedule they had from this past week, had a couple of games this past weekend. Both of them were at home. Friday, January 19th, they lost to the Danbury Hat-Tricks by the final score of 4-3, but they came back on Saturday and won by the final score of 6-2. Looking ahead to this upcoming weekend, they've got a couple games. Friday, January 26th, they'll be on the road playing the Watertown Wolves. And then Saturday, January 27th at 7 o'clock Eastern, they're at home playing the Elmira River Sharks. For more tickets, information, all that good stuff, you can go to binghamtonblackbears.com. Now we're going to talk a little bit of golf. Because I heard
Golf?
Yes, I know. We're not the biggest golf podcast, but I heard this story and I could not fucking believe this.
Okay.
equal parts incredible, equal parts infuriating, because over the weekend, there was a historic win at the PGA Tour event, the American Express, where you had 20-year-old Nick Dunlap, who was an amateur, win the PGA Tour event.
Okay.
First time in 33 years, you had an amateur try to win a PGA Tour event, which he did pull it off. He did say, quote, "Most nervous I'd ever been by far, just tried to breathe, but also look up and enjoy it a little bit," close quote. Well, he did pull off the win. However, a little bit of bullshit and shenanigans took place because reading from an article on usatoday.com, partway into the article, it says, quote, "This was a momentous occasion for Dunlap, who is still a sophomore at the University of Alabama. He even brought some of his homework with him to California while he played in this event.
That's insane.
No one ever would have thought someone like him could have beaten out the seasoned PGA Tour veterans in attendance and claim the $1.5 million prize. Well, he won't be able to. Despite winning the event, Dunlap's status as an amateur golfer prevents him from taking home the prize money from this PGA-sanctioned event."
Wow.
Yeah, so, close quote. So, basically, he wins this event at 20 years old, beats his opponent, but because he's an amateur, he can't claim the prize.
That's insane.
And the prize is going to be distributed between the folks who finished in second, third, and fourth place. That's some bullshit.
Yeah, why does he even enter it at all?
I know.
That's pointless.
Asinine. Needs to be rectified in my humble opinion.
Oh, God, yeah.
Then we got to talk some Major League Baseball because yesterday the Hall of Famers voting results did emerge. In joining Jim Leland, who was the manager of the Detroit Tigers, among a host of other roles, in Cooperstown this upcoming summer will be Adrian Beltre. Played for a whole host of teams. One of the great third basemen of the modern era. Got in with 95.1%.
Okay.
Just to note, for the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, you need to get in with 75% of the vote.
Right.
Todd Helton played his entire career with the Colorado Rockies, got in with 79.7%. Joe Mauer, on his first ballot, played his entire career with the Minnesota Twins, grew up in the St. Paul, Minnesota, got in 76.1% of the vote. A couple guys who fell short, Billy Wagner, 73.8%. Gary Sheffield in his final year of eligibility, 63.9%. So he'll look to get in via the Veterans Committee if he should be able to get in, because that's not a surefire guarantee thing these days.
Right.
You also had Andrew Jones, finished with 61.6%. Carlos Beltran, 57.1%. Alex Rodriguez with 34.8%, and Manny Ramirez with 32.5%. Also should note, David Wright, first year on the ballot, 6.2%.
Well, I mean, that's tough because Wright is more of like, for the Mets Hall of Fame, he'll be there. But the overall, I mean, it's tough to say. Beltre makes the most sense to me.
Beltre was the biggest no doubt in my mind this year. Just go look up his stats. It's insane.
Exactly. Helton and Mauer was surprising first ballot.
I figure would get in, just I wasn't sure if it'd be first or not.
Right. That's the only thing there too. But can't really argue that. And then next year's class, I mean.
Next year's class should be very interesting because some of the notable names you have on the ballot for the first time, some dude named Ichiro Suzuki.
Yeah, that's a lock.
Some dude named CC Sabathia.
Should be a lock.
Some dude named Dustin Pedroia.
I
think he'll get in at some point.
I don't know if he'll get first ballot.
Gotta know. He's only got 10 years to get in. It's not the 15, 20, whatever it used to be. It's only 10.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of names, but some other notable ones on here. Felix Hernandez is on there for the first time. Curtis Granderson's on there, a longtime outfielder for a bunch of teams. Russell Martin is on there. Melky Cabrera is on there, of all folks. Clay Buchholz, Francisco Liriano. So there's going to be some interesting names to see next year. Fernando Rodney, K-Rod's on there.
Yeah, I think the only lock right now, though, I'd say is Ichiro.
Ichiro's in there. CC should be.
CC should be. Should be is the key word, though.
The thing I got to say, though, and I agree with what Adam Jones, not Pac-Man Jones, but Adam Jones, the baseball player, said on Twitter yesterday. I got to agree with him, though. Quote, "Whoever votes for the Hall of Fame should have to publicly post their ballots. You're screwing around with people's immortality because they didn't give you a hug. That's poppycock," close quote. And the reason I say this is, as I mentioned, Billy Wagner got super close to getting in and would have gotten in if some of the folks from last year voted for him this year, because of the public ballots we know of, 3 folks who voted for him last year didn't vote for him this year because reasons. And then also 2 folks just turned in blank ballots because reasons.
Yeah.
The other interesting one you had is the two gentlemen who voted for Manny Ramirez and Alex Rodriguez and nobody else. So I agree with Adam Jones wholeheartedly that every ballot should be public. The other thing, too, is I think they need to go through it every couple of years. I won't say every 5, I'll say every 10 years. And purge some of the voting folks, because I was going through the baseball Reddit yesterday, and there's a number of folks who still have a vote for the Hall of Fame, despite not having written or covered baseball in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, okay, you have a grace period where you're good, but once you hit, say, however, like 10 years after you've quit writing baseball, you shouldn't have a vote anymore. You're not covering the game anymore.
Yeah, agreed. There's a lot of things they got to do to that voting process. So for me, very quickly for sports, NBA news kind of jumped out of nowhere. A head coaching change for Milwaukee. So Adrian Griffith is out. And Doc Rivers is in.
Shout out to Doc Rivers' career on ESPN covering the finals.
Yeah.
Didn't even happen.
Yeah, I am very shocked at this one.
Also, shout out to the Bucks. You're now paying 3 head coaches.
Yeah, this
two of which aren't even on your roster no more.
This is a little crazy for me to figure out. Because obviously in Milwaukee, it's not like they were doing bad at all.
Yeah.
Second in the East.
Yeah.
30-13. To the fact that they made a coaching change, there's got to be some reasons behind it.
It's got to be some in-house clubhouse disagreements. He's lost the clubhouse.
It's something.
Because Christ, Detroit still has their head coach, and they're how bad?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the whole problem right there. So in this circumstance, I don't really know the moves, but I think with Rivers,
okay.
If he does not get them to the finals and win, this is going to be a big bust.
I mean, it's Giannis and Dame Lillard.
Right, you would think.
It should be, and it's fucking the East. Should be a walk in the park.
You would think. But if they're making changes like this, that says something's not right.
It's got to be, and they got to be looking to bring in a seasoned veteran presence. Listen, say what you will about Doc Rivers, love him or hate him, he at least commands a certain level of respect among his peers and the players in the NBA. That's why people still love him, and why players love to talk to him and be coached by him.
Yeah.
So clearly something's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep our eyes on that moving forward.
Have to watch out for the Woj bomb.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's going to be a lot more moving and shaking going on before it's all said and done.
Probably.
Especially with the All-Star game slowly approaching us on the horizon.
Indianapolis, yeah.
Very, very quietly.
Yeah.
Last but certainly not least, it's obviously Rangers time to talk.
Fuck yeah.
Still in first place in the Metropolitan Division, but they have had a rough skid as of late since we have not been recording.
It's that West Coast swing.
Yeah, they're struggling a little bit on the West Coast when they lost to Vegas and they lost to the Los Angeles Kings. Albeit, though, the Kings was only 2-1. Vegas one scared me a little bit being 5-1, but they bounced back against Anaheim, winning 5-2. And then last night took a loss in overtime to the Sharks, 3-2. They bounced back on Friday night against Vegas, but they're hosting Vegas. So, obviously, more information on that. Make sure you're following NHL.com. And the Rangers is still in first place, and that's all anybody needs to worry about.
All matters.
Exactly. So that's it for anything and everything that is the ODPH. You can find it at odphpodcast.com. That's it for the sports edition this week. The entertainment edition will be on Patreon. So for the one and only Padawan J,
fuck the Astros.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. We will see you next time.
It's such waste of time swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. 'Cause anyone who's worth a damn be worth way more than a picture could ever show. You could find the right light, find the right angle, and never find your soul. And it can feel like a losing battle, and this plot is full of holes. This modern way of finding love just makes me feel so alone. And I can't be the only one sick of staring at my phone. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up I'm fabled. Everyone has just one true love. All I know is you're across this table, and you're all I'm thinking of. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me, we don't have to float alone on the open sea. Talk to me. Talk to me. It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know.